watching the Jennylyn Show, and I'm Jennylyn, your host. And as always, I try to get us someone fascinating. And tonight we have Alvaro Prieto, and he is a rock star for building robots. Alvaro, thank you so much for taking the time to come here.
No problem.
And I look at all the gadgets you've come with. I hope we have enough time to talk about them because I want to hear what they are.
I hope so. They're not in a working state, but I can tell you the story behind them if we get to it.
Okay, good. So hopefully we have time because you've got quite a bit. Which is your first one?
Oh, this guy? So this is, I like to call it laser shooting robot or a laser turret. The story for this, I built it for a competition, but it all started when I was 18. Out of high school, there was a competition making robots that shot like a BB gun at targets, but it had to be fully autonomously. So I was just out of high school. I didn't quite know. I knew where I was going to college. I was going to study electrical engineering, but I didn't have much to do that summer, and I found out about this contest. I was like, oh, let me try it. Someone was going to work with me, so I didn't feel so intimidated. I went ahead and decided I'm going to build a robot. I've never built a robot that shoots BB guns at targets completely by itself using a webcam and like motors. The person I was going to work with backed out, so I was left on my own, but I was able to put it together just with very, very cheap parts with like a camera, like a webcam. I took apart my dad's webcam. He had to get him a new one after that. I got a very cheap BB gun from, I don't know, if eBay or something, and some webcam pan and tilt motors. And I went to the contest, and I was competing against college students or adult, like much older hobbyists, and I didn't get last place. I was very happy about that. And it was a fun learning experience. Fast forward till maybe 2013, they brought back the contest. I hadn't been at all in that time, and this time it was, instead of shooting BBs, like little pellets, it was shooting a laser beam. And instead of targets being stationary, it was going to be a little train that would be moving around a little track, and the robot would have to basically follow that train and shoot it with a laser beam. So I built this little robot. I actually went through many, many different iterations of designing this guy, and it was just kind of for fun. I'm an electrical engineer. I write firmware, which is kind of code for microcontrollers, kind of what Alicia, previous guest, did. Yes,
from my embedded show.
Yeah, so all this mechanical stuff is very alien to me. I don't know it very well. I never studied it, so this project has been kind of a learning experience to.
And this is the first thing that you built?
Well, this is for the 2013 competition. So the one I built in 2006 is long gone. But yeah,
the first one was shooting
the like actual pellets.
Right.
Yeah.
And this one shoots laser beams.
Oh, you can see. Yeah. There you go. I didn't know we had the close up. But yeah. So it's just a few motors. It kind of spins around. It has a webcam connects to a laptop. Oh, there you go. So you can see the video, kind of my early stages.
Right.
I was kind of hand cutting balsa wood, putting a webcam. There's my code for tracking the ball as it moves along. Then I had to make these targets to simulate the competition. I used gears, I 3D laser cut gears. Then I tried some acrylic. And then I had to work on the software. It didn't always work. And this was the final kind of version of it working. So it's fully on its own, finding these blue targets, aiming and shooting them, which was a lot of fun because I had to learn computer vision. I had to learn how to laser cut materials, 3D modeling. And to me, this is all kind of not part of my usual day-to-day stuff. So it's a very fun learning experience. You see it says Maker Faire. This was 3 years ago, I guess. So I kind of made a little promo video for YouTube so that people would come to my booth at Maker Faire to check out the robot and play some games.
That is just amazing to me. So what do you do with this? You just have it as something that you've done, or is it being used for anything?
No, I had it. I don't know. I have a hard time letting go of this one because it was such a special. I got first place that year at competition.
Oh, congratulations!
Thanks. I won a large quadcopter kit, so I got to build that and fly it around. The following year, I went a little more out there. So instead of using motors and moving the laser around, I got mirrors and galvanometers, which is kind of just a little tiny motor that moves the mirror along a little bit. So the laser would get shot into two mirrors that would move a little bit, and then the laser would move all over the place. And that means the laser moves extremely fast, whereas moving the entire piece of wood takes a little bit longer. But aiming becomes a different problem because now you have more of trigonometry and stuff, right? Because you have the camera doesn't move, and then the laser's moving around. So it was a much more tricky kind of endeavor, and it worked. I think I got third place maybe or fourth place. But it was a lot of fun. I had to learn a whole new other set of things, how to calibrate camera and all that stuff. But that one I took apart because it was a little different. So this was just there. I've pulled it out a few times. I gave a talk to some students a while back, and I would control it with a PlayStation controller.
Yes.
Just to be safe, because you never know.
The thing that I love about all of the people that have come on my show, that have created, like in Alicia's case, it was her embedded stuff that she put in there. I love the enthusiasm that I see in you guys. I mean, to someone like me I look at it and I think, wow, it looks like pieces of board stuck together with wires everywhere, but yet it's so functional. So much of what's happening in the world now, they're going to robots. It's artificial intelligence and robots.
Yes.
Are you working on anything else that can go to the refrigerator and bring me the milk or anything like that? Is that on the horizon?
Not quite. You did mention refrigerator, though, and I do have some refrigerator controller boards I've made.
Okay.
So I have here, last year I decided I'm going to make cheese. I'm going to learn how to make cheese. A friend of mine and I are big fans. Cheese, like brie. I don't know if you've tried brie.
Yes, yes.
So we decided, hey, let's make brie. And we started reading about it, and it turns out you need a very specific temperature and humidity for the aging process of the cheese.
Right, right.
So there's some very expensive things you can buy, but I decided, I could build a board that can measure temperature, humidity, and turn the fridge on and off. So I bought a little Home Depot mini fridge, and then I built this board. I don't know. There we go. Yeah, I built this board that could have all these many sensors connected to it, and I could measure temperature at different parts. And then I made this other board, which is the same one, just smaller, more efficient, and then even smaller board. So every time I would see all the parts I used, parts I didn't use, and I would get smaller and smaller. And I used it both to make cheese and control the fridge, but also to teach myself how to do circuit design, like circuit board layout, playing with more of the electrical engineering aspect. I studied electrical engineering, but my job is more of writing software for these microcontrollers.
Right.
So all my hobby projects at home, I kind of use as an excuse to learn the stuff I'm not learning at work. In this case, it's making cheese.
So tell me, did you make the cheese?
Yes.
Tell us about the cheese.
So first I made all these boards,
yes.
the first one, and I got the cheese, the controller working, but we never actually went ahead and made the cheese. But my friend, who's awesome, she surprised me one day, and she said, we got to be in Emeryville at this time of day. And I was like, okay. So we got there, and it was a cheese making class. It was a surprise cheese-making class, and the result of the class, you went home with a brie that you kind of made, but you have to age it now for about 5 weeks. So I now had this brie, and I had to get the fridge up and running immediately. So I was able to get it up and running. We got that brie, and about 5, 6 weeks later, we were able to eat it. Unfortunately, I put way too much salt by mistake. The recipe was for 12, and I put all that salt for a single one.
Oh my gosh.
But that encouraged us to try it again. Then we made 6 more bries on our own, and we just ate the last one on Friday, and it was very popular with friends and coworkers.
Well, I am so impressed. So you're even making cheese. How long does it take to make cheese, this particular brie that you made?
The brie, just the actual process of mixing the milk with the molds and the rennet, that's only a few hours one day, right? Then it solidifies, and you cut the curds. Mm-hmm. You cut the cheese curds, you put them in the molds, you let it's called the whey, the kind of liquid fall out, and then after a couple of days you can put it in the fridge, and then every day you flip it so the mold grows evenly and it doesn't stick to the bottom of it. After a couple of weeks, once the mold is very blue, it's kind of fuzzy, it's like a fuzzy white mold, then you wrap it in the cheese wrapper, cheese paper, and you keep flipping it every other day, maybe.
Similar to making yogurt.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same. It's a culture that's growing. It's a living thing. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, you can start eating it. And then the longer you wait, the flavor changes. And it's really cool.
I think that is so neat. So if a person who doesn't know how to build those chips, they can't make cheese at home.
They can. You can do it on a regular fridge, but it takes much longer because it's very cold. So everything is slowed down. Okay. Or you could get a wine fridge. Those are usually around the right temperature. I think it was 50 Fahrenheit. But I wanted to control also the humidity and measure it. And I like data, and I like it's an excuse to learn more technologies, right? Like, I didn't have to do all these things, but I learned a lot by doing it, and I had a lot of fun.
Well, you're clearly a rock star. I mean, we have a whole box of stuff back there that we didn't bring on this set. But before we continue talking about all the different chips that you've built and the cheese, tell me a little bit about Alvaro.
What do you want to know?
Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Okay. What do you think is behind the passion that you have for building this stuff?
Okay. So I was born in Mexico City.
Okay. Well, you don't have to give us the
long
date.
Time ago, in the 80s, late 80s.
Okay.
I lived there until I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And then I moved, my dad's job moved us to Florida, to Miami. So I went to middle school and high school there. And then I got into the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, in Rochester, New York. And it's studied electrical engineering. And the reason I chose that, because it's a 5-year program instead of the traditional 4. And one of these years has to be full-time paid work, kind of in between. It was a quarter system. So you'd study for 3 quarters, and then you work for 1 or 2. And that way I got actual work experience while I was studying in university. So I worked at a train track, like remote control system company. So I would control the rail switches remotely, which was super cool and super scary because these are really big machines. Right. So I did that for 6 months, went back to school. Then, before that I studied abroad in Russia because I always liked to travel. So I tried that. Then I worked in Switzerland at a research institute working with it was a proton therapy device that is used to treat cancer tumors and stuff like that. I also worked in Finland doing GPS receiver research and stuff. And eventually I graduated and went off to work at Texas Instruments in Texas for about a year. After that, I came to Maker Faire. I made a lot of friends online in the maker community, and they were all coming to Maker Faire here in the Bay Area. I was super excited, so I came. I met a bunch of folks. I went back to Texas, and a few days later, I get a call from a friend I saw for maybe 3 minutes. Says, "Hey, how do you like Texas? Wouldn't you rather live in California and work for Apple?" So,
are you serious?
Yeah, he just called me up. I thought it was
You must have had some impressive stuff at the Maker Faire.
I was just visiting that time. I had some little gadgets I made, but he knew me from college, and he just called. Right. About 2 months later, I lived here. I was working for Apple, and I worked there for 3¼ years. It was a lot of fun. And eventually, I decided to switch to it was a startup called Planet. Now it's Planet Labs. Now it's Planet. They make tiny satellites. I've always loved space. and a friend was working at a startup that built satellites about this big, and there was a chance for me to work on actual stuff that goes to space, which was just mind-blowing. So I left a great job I had at Apple to go work on a satellite startup.
Any regrets?
Any regrets?
That you left Apple to go over here?
Not leaving.
Okay.
I proved to myself that I wasn't in it for the money, because there's always a lot of money involved when you leave a company and you have lots of stock, and when you leave it hurts financially, but it also showed me that I'm doing this because I want to, not because of all these things. Unfortunately, the startup life wasn't quite for me. After 6 months, I burnt out, and although some of the satellites I worked on are in space and it's super cool, I was having a hard time and decided to take, I like to call it a self-funded sabbatical. So I took 5 months off and traveled. And
this is the time of your life to do that, if you're going to do it.
The best decision I ever made.
Right.
I thought I'm just going to take 2 months off and then look for another job. After 2 months, I was like, no way. I am having so much fun. I had some savings, luckily. I'm fortunate enough that I work here, and I saved a bunch of money away, so I could take some time off. And I made it a point to just visit all of my friends who I hadn't seen in years, because everybody's so busy, and, oh, let's hang out. But, oh, my schedule and your schedule. This time, my schedule was blank. So I would just say to my friends, like, when are you free? I go visit. And I just flew all over the country and around the world as well to just hang out with my friends who I hadn't seen in years. And it just turned my life around. It was fantastic.
What motivation did you get for some of this while you were traveling, if any?
For some of these?
Yeah,
a lot
some
of
of the ideas, the stuff you've built. Was any of this triggered by any of your travels?
Not necessarily the travels. The cheese was kind of the cheese.
You like cheese?
I love cheese. It's one of my passions.
I get it.
I call it the cheese cave controller, because like an Asian cave, just a fridge. But that one happened, or at least we started talking about it before I started working again. A lot of these other ones I did actually before. Some just for my own learning. I was telling you, this is the very first circuit board I ever made, and this
looks like a clear piece of plastic to me.
Yeah. So, and here's a prototype, cardboard prototype I did.
Okay.
This, I think I was 13 or 14, and my dad. I needed to mix some sound. I was editing a video for a class. We wanted to make a movie, and we wanted to mix in some sound effects. And back then, it was still just VHS. I had 2 VHS players and recorders. And then my dad said, "Hey, we can make a circuit."
Is your dad an engineer as well?
He's an electrical engineer, yeah.
Oh, well, now we're getting the picture here.
My dad's an electrical engineer. My grandpa was a civil engineer. His dad was a civil engineer. His dad was a mining engineer, I guess.
Did the men in your family know their other professions?
No, they never pressured me. I never had any pressure. It was just pure inspiration. So we found a circuit online. My dad says, we can build that. Go to Radio Shack, get the parts. I put together on the breadboard, just a prototyping board, and it worked. And then he said, we can make an actual printed circuit board. But he asked me to prototype it. So I did it in cardboard, some Sharpies. And then we actually etched the copper off this circuit board.
So that's copper on there.
Yeah, so usually it's all copper, and then it's usually fiberglass or something underneath.
Okay.
And you will cover these in etch-resistant material, they call it.
Yes.
So when you submerge this in acid, everything that's not painted on will dissolve. And then ideally I would have drilled holes and put the components inside of them, but I never actually got around to it.
Okay, how old were you when you did that?
I think 12 or 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, once again, I'm reminded of Mr. Wozniak, who's the first person that I interviewed that built chips, and he built his first at 9 years. This is really impressive.
Yeah, he's
you guys are doing
hero.
this. I mean, how did you even know what to do?
For this,
Yes.
my dad helped me out, right? For others, it's been more of learning projects. For example, I have this little quadcopter. You've probably seen these around. I don't know. You can see
What do you do with that?
So I wanted to learn how they worked. So I got a bunch of these. They're like $35. It's crazy how cheap these are. I open it up. I opened up this is a remote control, the circuit board, and I took apart the microcontroller that controlled it. And then I measured all the signals going in and out of the radio. And eventually I figured out what the radio protocol is to control these. So this was a project for me to learn how they worked and to learn other technologies. So eventually I made a little radio board that I could pretend to be a controller for these little quadcopters. So I could control it with my computer now. I could control them. I could listen in to other people controlling their quadcopters. And eventually I was able to, it's kind of a mean thing, if let's say you're flying your quadcopter but I don't want you to, I was able to push a button and then it would just fall. It was just, yeah, transmitting at the same frequency at the same time, and then it would stop receiving commands and it'd just fall. But for me, that was a learning experience as to all the wireless protocol, how it worked, how to talk to these radio transmitter chips.
Yeah.
And this was just purely for my own education, and I wanted to learn more about these technologies, so I found a cool toy. And
Are you ever going to build something that a robot or one of these things that they'll probably use in something that's we're going to use in our homes? Do you ever think you will, or you just like building gadgets that like these? I
like gadgets. I definitely like useful gadgets, and some of the stuff is not super useful. The circuit board actually, it was for the new robot I made with the mirrors and the laser. That can be used as a laser projector, basically. So you can, in addition to shooting things, if you there we go. If you move the laser fast enough, you can draw shapes, right? You can draw lines, you can connect them, and you could make kind of games like that. I'm still working on it. It's kind of in the back burner, but you can imagine just having a wall and projecting some laser art, either art or you could display the music, kind of show the waves and do stuff like that. And it's just for fun, but mildly useful.
So you have a regular job. Do you do any of this at your job, or is this all just what you do when you're as your pastime? Yeah.
The writing code for the microcontrollers, that's my main job. I also, and that was my job at Apple as well, just writing code for microcontrollers to do things. I was doing a lot of prototyping work back then. Some of those lessons I take home, but a lot of what I try to do at home is to kind of learn what I don't learn at work. Because the reason I'm at work is to make a living, of course, but also to learn, right? If I stop learning, I need to find something else because I'll get bored. It's a waste of everyone's time if we're just doing the same thing. You could just teach someone else to do it. But at home, I try to learn the things I don't have a chance to learn at work, or we might have experts in that topic. So at work, I might be able to ask them, but I'm not doing it. And I learn by doing. I'm not great at just reading something and learning. I have to try it, actually use it. So a lot of these, making the circuit boards, I've never had to do that for work. I've worked with people who did. I've had to debug these things. I've had to troubleshoot all that stuff, but I'm not making the circuit board. So making the circuit boards at home is kind of a learning experience for me, which helps me at work. Because now when I see someone else's circuit board, I have a better idea of how it works because I've done some of that stuff myself. Same with mechanical things. I'm not a mechanical engineer, not even close. But I watch videos online. I learn how to laser cutter works, and then I start building things. And it's a lot of fun for me, but I also learn as I go.
You know, the time goes by so quickly when I'm learning about all this fascinating stuff that you guys do. We're down to 4 minutes.
Oh, no.
But before, we run out of time, what do you want to tell us about it I haven't led you to talk about?
Oh, no, there's so much. Of all these gadgets I brought, these are the most interesting ones, I guess.
I looked at the video last night where I saw what you took to the last Maker Faire. And that was quite impressive. Or you had a video of it. Did we look at the video?
Oh, yeah, we could. So part of... I was going to display this robot at Maker Faire, but I thought it's not going to be super interesting for most people to just see a robot moving around. So we made a game out of it where it's a shooting gallery, I call it, where you have all these ping pong balls This is the competition from the first robot, actually. So this is what we were shooting at the contest. At Maker Faire, I made kind of a similar version of this. It was static, so we had all these ping pong balls on a black curtain, I guess.
Yes.
And they would light up. And you had to shoot them with a laser, like a laser pointer. And whenever they would get hit with a laser pointer, they would turn off and you get a point. So we had 2 of these set up, and people could go and play against each other, but they could also play against this robot. And back then my code wasn't great, so it would beat kids, but adults could still beat it. But yeah, we had I think over 100 people.
Wow, these are all people playing your game?
Yeah, all these people played our game at Maker Faire. And they would come up, they would play, and it was so much fun having...
So why aren't you you make all this stuff and then you just put it away in boxes? Are you ever going to sell any of it?
People ask me, but I don't know. I have all the source, all the code for this is online, all the design files are online. I do it more for myself. Maybe someday I'll come up with something that I want to make a business out of. But a lot of this is just, I feel, if people want to do it, I will help them make it themselves. But this was just a fun way of showing people some of the stuff that they can make themselves. Not everything is extremely hard to make.
Well, we're down to 2 minutes, but I'm looking at the enthusiasm and the joy. These people look like they're having a wild time playing your game. Haven't people contacted you and go, where can we buy this? Do you ever get any of that?
There was a mom that asked me, do you do parties? I was just like, that's the last thing I ever thought of. No, it was all really for the robot. To me, I wasn't making a game. I was making something that people would be interested so they could come see my robot. So it was kind of a side effect that turned out to be much more interesting than the robot itself.
Well, I am very impressed with this. I think it's a shame that you just build them and put them away. You need to start building them and packaging them and selling them. But how do they benefit people on YouTube? And we're down to 1 minute, so just tell me quickly.
Just people can watch it, get inspired and learn. Many people saw my progress of building this robot. Competitors, people I competed against, were inspired by me building it and said, hey, if you hadn't been doing this, I wouldn't have even competed. So to me, that was good enough.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching the Jennylyn Show. I am sure that you are as fascinated as I am by all of his creations, and maybe keep your eyes out. You maybe go into the grocery store to buy his cheese one day. Just keep on the lookout. And if you're watching the show and you like robots, hopefully you've learned something, and you can build one of your own one day soon, or contact Alvaro.
Yes.
And he will help you how to do it. So thanks again for watching the Jennylyn Show. And thank you to my crew and everyone who's helped with the production of this segment.